This video is intended to describe a lightblade talisman named Abundance. Joining me today will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map for visual guide reference cues, as well as this lovely green leather, which will be explained in due time. But starting off with the lightblade talisman is describing the blade band scaffolding. Starting off with the primary blade band, much like so, which would be the abundance ratio, going into the transmutation ratio, which runs laterally like so, up the sides laterally, and once again closing that particular sequence, with a rather opulent point right here where the necklace eventually will be installed right there. So as a preface, this would be the light blade scaffolding that takes the current and the blade magnition sequence and recirculates the entire vibratory output into what perpetually vaguely resembles a perpetual figure 8, essentially, to, in design, be a perpetual containment and recirculation of the energetic momentum of this closed-loop circuit device before me. So I'll go ahead and discuss the transmutation blade band first things first as a fantastic foundational preface. Starting off with hematite, a metal-based, iron-based crystal that has a very fantastic grounding of all excess energy through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, as well as a fantastic aid to take all the other frequencies yet to be mentioned and work as a strong grounding and taking all the disparate energies and firmly grounding through the root, which also serves as a tremendous contingency. In tandem with smoky quartz in the ignition sequence, smoky quartz is a fantastic grounder of negativity into positivity as well, by taking all the excess energy, just like hematite, and grounding it and purifying through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing. So the two together is what I consider the transmutation ratio that has a very practical utilization purpose. So when you have the two grounders working in tandem as a ratio at ignition sequence, it takes all the excess energy and ensures a strong grounding of the energy, and most importantly, grounding the excess energy into Mother Earth for two-way energetic dialysis reprocessing, which is a very powerful transmutation agent of negativity into positivity by firmly grounding into the earth for reprocessing. As well as it works as a great contingency for all these other frequencies as it runs its ignition sequence through the scaffolding to ensure the grounding contact patch of its entire construct is firmly grounded into the earth, most importantly to make the magic real, into the tangibility range. So, then I will be discussing next the abundance ratio. So by the time this video has been filmed, this would be the 20th proper rendition of the abundance platform since early January, and by the time this filming occurs, this is mid-late March. So there has been 20 of these guys in staves, wands, talismans, rings in distribution at this point. At this time period, that has generated tremendous vibrational compound interest with a very significant tangible victory range for the platforms in distribution thus far. And why that's relevant is that this, of course, is the latest entry on a pre-existing victorious platform that has performed exceedingly well. That's why that's relevant, before I continue further. So all these other constructs have this particular abundance ratio signature output right here as the primary blade band or the main emanation containment to have the frequency be at the most concentrated point, basically. Starting off with clear quartz to be a neutral accelerant of the energy, going into peridot. Peridot is a fantastic third and fourth chakra earth elemental stimulant of essentially crystalline captured chlorophyll. How, of course, indeed all this is possible. And so it's a fantastic stone of abundance, growth, and expansion that is very exceptional for stimulating the third and fourth chakras to a very blessed configuration of great joy and great gratitude, which is the keystone of being an abundant frequency. Then right here would be rutilated quartz to work as a tremendous accelerant of the energy going into emerald. Emerald is the pretty much indisputable king and queen of the green ray stone of abundance of the ideal heart chakra receptive spectrum, based on the utilization of excessive royalty, alchemists, you name it. This stone has gone down in history as a tremendously powerful exotic precious stone, precious crystal, which means, of course, that that frequency has a lot of notoriety and, most importantly, tremendous amount of faith in being a stone of antiquity in magic, with all aspects of the globe really honoring this particular green ray wonder of the mineral kingdom, from the Ayurvedics, from the royals, everybody, Colombians in South America that are isolated from the other part of the world, technically valued this stone very much. Actually, this is Colombian emerald, fun fact, but that's not, that's a digression. But the big purpose of why this emerald is getting such a strong showcasing right now is that the idea of this stone being so well believed and fortified in the entire human experience, morphic field of collective consciousness, is that this is pretty much the quintessential stone of abundance and a very powerful yield. So having that ignition sequence dominant vibration of the emerald with the peridot is what is considered to be the abundance ratio. I believe that probably be enough on just the subject of emerald right there. Going into clear quartz to once again neutrally accelerate into the peridot for the fantastic receptive heart stimulation. Going into golden healer quartz. Golden healer quartz is a very fantastic gold white light source energy alignment. So the big aspect of having the source connection, gold white light source of creation emanation attunement, is very useful in the terrestrial transference of the heart chakra with the green seen here to be the gold white light of source creation, which obviously, theoretically saying that in a metaphysical dissertation has its own merit of being very cool for the purpose of being an authentic spirit tool in tangibility. So when you have the ignition of the ideal spectrum of the receptive heart chakra of abundance, and that is quite famous, in tandem with its lovely counterpart, peridot, that is quite famous too, but not quite as legendarily revered as emerald, they work fantastic in tandem together to be a tremendous exaggeration of the abundance spectrum of absolute reception, particularly in alignment with source creation, which is, in theory, a concept of a holy grail generator of abundance of what you really are in creation, as well as everything goes with that. So the field testing on this exact platform has been pretty diverse with a lot of many tangible testimonials to this construct. So that's why this latest rendition is rather exciting. Digression. Apologies. I must stay on target, obviously, because this is rather exciting for me. So the aspect also of this exaggerated field of abundance being the primary ignition sequence directly grounds back into the transmutation blade band scaffolding scene right here to most importantly ground this entire energy sequence as it runs through this sequence right here. It takes the entire frequency pitch and most importantly brings it into the earth for tangibility. That's why the transmutation ratio plays such a critical role in virtually all light tech to indeed make the magic real, which is the root name of magic, is to make real. Then the apex band right here where the necklace will be installed is rather exotic in nature, which is very complementary to the opulent structure of abundance. Starting off with clear quartz to be a neutral accelerant of the energy into blue sapphire, another stone of great notoriety and antiquity. That is a tremendous wind elemental, 5th and 6th chakra stimulant. That is very much also a classic stone of opulence and abundance and royal notarization, just like its perfect antithesis, its cousin, red ruby. In between the clear quartz right here, there is ruby. Ruby, the indisputable king of the red ray of root chakra stimulation, zest for life, is also another very famous, precious, utilized stone that is quite prolific in its deification, I guess? Like it's almost been deified over time of being a tremendous, amazing frequency in its own right. So when you have the aspect of the top spectrum right here, but the necklace will be installed with that further opulent spectrum of true precious royal stones that have stood the test of time, that literally almost all of humanity has heard of these particular stones of emerald, ruby, and sapphire because they are true precious stones that are quite famous, which means all three of these frequencies, even also peridot, I'd hate to underplay just this, obviously emerald's a little more famous. All three of these frequencies have had so much faith based in their magic for thousands of years that, of course, is the aspect of very powerful faith and belief in a frequency makes it real, magic. So that's the aspect of why these particular frequencies have been virtually all employed in all abundance constructs to really develop tremendous vibrational compound interest of these traditional amazing stones of precious notoriety to be in the very much the abundance spectrum. And of course, having the aspect of a very strong root chakra at the top is a great fortification agent, as well as the blue sapphire to be a higher truth agent is very much copacetic for maintaining the zest for life as well as the clarity of one's abundant spectrum. Essentially, there is actually a meticulous purpose to all these little intricacies of this given construct before me. So that would be the Abundance Blade Band scaffolding that has virtually not been deviated besides minor frequencies for all the individual recipients for slight frequency tailoring in the highest order for their particular vocation, walks in life. So that'd be, once again, the Abundance Blade Band scaffolding mentioned, which will, of course, take all the excess frequencies yet to be mentioned and run through the scaffolding, and once again, which resembles vaguely a figure 8 to be the containment and recirculation of all this excess energy yet to be mentioned. So starting over here, I'll go ahead and talk about this guy right here at the apex of the blade. This is fulgurite. Fulgurite is a product of lightning literally striking sand, carrying the energy of lightning in a bottle, quite literally wire wrapped to the primary wire, which is part of its vibrational circuit or an organ of this crystalline entity before me. So fulgurite is a very powerful, full light body lightning stimulation of the entire chakra column in unison, as well as a tremendous First Nation shamanic spirit tool to intensify their prayers back to spirit in service to creation, which is pretty cool. So that classic shamanic utilization tool, of course, is a full stimulation of literally the entire chakra column with lightning force, but luckily, of course, it's grounded through a whole subroutine to be perpetually stabilized and grounded, of course, to get the most out of it. And so the fulgurite is also a very powerful manifestation agent, as well as a tremendous light body stimulant in its own right, which is a very powerful dharmic accelerant to keep one in touch with their absolute abundance of creation, to also further intensify this entire abundance pitch frequency. And right here is seraphinite, a very fantastic green ray seraphic frequency master healer I employ quite religiously in my life's work for a very good purpose. Obviously, it's a green ray stimulation that has heart chakra stimulation connotations, but the seraphic frequency that's called seraphinite, named after the seraphim archangels, also has a full light body stimulation from top to bottom that is imbuing the seraphic energies of the higher seraphic realms close to source in the crystalline transferable structure, which saying that's pretty amazing out loud, and that's why I employ it quite religiously with tremendous yielding results. So having that full light body stimulation of the entire chakra column being healed also works as a tremendous way to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease from top to bottom of the auric field, everything in between, any meridians, any chakras. It works very effectively to dismantle patterns of divisitory stored energy that be manifesting as a malady. Hence, it's a true, tangible master healer stone I employ, once again, thrice, quite religiously for this purpose. And also, of course, having a nice, soothing, extreme emotional body healing capacity for this intensive abundance spectrum also works to mitigate any resistance points of the abundance spectrum, which there'll be many components to that encourage that capacity for max efficiency, which I'll get into right now. So right here is the lovely, legendary, famous moldavite. Moldavite is quite the legendary stone in this day and age and quite in vogue and even quite infamous. Moldavite has become famous on social media platforms like TikTok and stuff like that for being a stone, a novelty of true magic. So it's quite in vogue, like I mentioned, but moldavite is a green ray quintessential dharmic accelerant I employ quite religiously as well to ensure that direct alignment of one's heart in connection to their source alignment manifest in the physical 3D world is highly intensified and aligned to that dharmic output. Or basically, the highest path manifests for the conscious self of the wielder. Like the reason for the season of their incarnation, if you would, in the highest spiritual vocation is the employment of moldavite, essentially. So that, of course, is a great stone of spiritual activation and very dramatic yields. And so I oftentimes will say this too, is that I employ moldavite very sparingly because it's very, very powerful stuff. And that's exactly why there's a whole contingency subroutine to get the most out of that cosmic alignment dharmic accelerant while mitigating the timeline whiplash that can cause those those tower moments is to be designed to be mitigated and expedited as quick as possible to streamline the process to make it as comfortable and smooth as possible with this entire containment field. Anyhow, me and my digressions are pretty prolific in these videos, obviously, because there's a lot to talk about in intended design here. That's a given. And right here is its gold ray cousin Libyan gold tektite or Libyan desert sandglass. So just like moldavite, it's a very interesting novelty space frequency that is of the golden ray that was heavily employed by the pharaohs of old to be carved into scarab beetles for their breastplates of finery that were part of their badge of office as the Magi God Kings. So it definitely carries that very powerful mystical God King energy or God Queen energy of old. This, of course, is employed by the entire Magi cast, the royal cast. It's quite prolific. Not quite as famous as lapis lazuli, for example, in Egyptian utilization, but still a very, very powerful stone of antiquity. And here's why. It's born of mysterious space origin that's not quite ruled out by scientific jury, but it's a very powerful fire elemental sacrum and solar plexus stimulant of very high yield. I consider this to be a stone of golden ray illumination, virtually unsurpassed in the mineral kingdom, and is one of my top 5 favorite stones for its vibrant, joyful, luminous energy. So with that extreme solar plexus manifestation, it also intensifies one's manifestations very quickly, and particularly in tandem with its green ray cousin Moldavite, they both work together in tandem as tremendous dharmic accelerants to one's highest path made physical. It is a big goal here too, with the intended construct design. So the Libyan gold tektite is also a great stone of abundance as well, because it literally was a lesser known royal Egyptian utilized frequency for a distinct purpose, which has also a very powerful storm energy, full light body stimulation from top to bottom as well. So it's a very vibrant, joyful, fun energy. It's also very much a sovereign royal frequency to put one in touch with their true power and who they are in creation. Pretty dramatic thing to say, but that's why I employ it. So the other side of the blade face is more soothing and more tailored to the vocation of the recipient. So with this heavy blue ray concentration seen right here, it's very much a slight tailoring of the crystal vibratory output to maximize its effectivity in the service of the recipient, who actually does a lot of speaking and interviews many people across the world and has many different engagements of networking, things of that nature. So this has been designed to encourage that capacity to just honor that aspect of the soul vocation of the recipient and to expedite and smooth out the process for all those in contact with the recipient for the highest good. That is at least the loving intention set with this particular blade face sequence, which I will talk about now. So right here is a lovely piece of Larimar. Larimar is an incredibly soothing 5th and 6th chakra stimulant, but it's quite interesting frequency novelty by being a water and fire energy carrier. So what's fascinating about that, the polarities of water and fire oftentimes don't mix, but in one blue ray combination, it's quite fantastic. So this stone's become quite famous since the discovery in the early 80s from Dominican Republic, and is very beautiful, obviously, topically speaking. It's beautiful turquoise appearance, Robin Eggs blue. And it is a great soother of the 5th chakra and the 6th chakra simultaneously, which puts one very much in touch with the calm inner goddess energy, which is very good for keeping the tranquility frequency through the entire broadcast. As well as a great voice projection soothing aspect, which of course is very helpful for interviewing beings from all walks of life in all things metaphysical, to bring a calm compatibility of the speech pattern with the recipient. It's designed for that purpose. Okay, and then of course to augment the Larimar on the blade face, I had a little 5th attack there because it's a lot of 5th chakra focus I'm on right now. This right here is a very special variety of something called aquatine Lemurian calcite. So just like blue calcite, it's a fantastic clearer of the 5th and 6th chakras, yet it has a certain Lemurian frequency imprintation, which has old world magical connotations, which I'll do my best to do not digress too much on the subject and keep things linear and coherent. But the aspect also of Lemurian Lemurian aquatine calcite, it's a very special clearer of one's highest truth to the conscious self, which by itself, that's a true gift in its own merit, to clear any impediments of one's false self matrix, to seamlessly encourage the capacity of one's true self nature is the concept there, as well as being a tremendous clearer of the 5th chakra will be very advantageous for, like I said thrice, speaking to others in the vocation of the recipient. Then right here is another classic Blu-ray augmentation. Seen here is lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli, of course, is quite the famous crystalline ally utilized by ancient Egyptian mystery schools and royalty for a very good reason, and is quite literally a favorite of millions for thousands of years. and is a tremendous Blu-ray wind elemental 5th and 6th chakra stimulant that is truly powerful for stimulating the one's highest truth, perception, and speaking it. So it's a great stone for, of course, for interviews, for comprehension of magic. It's a great stone for all things metaphysical for academic purposes. And a classic stone of Egyptian royalty that has tremendous vibrational compound interest in the morphic field of the faith of humanity. Anyway, moving on, before I digress any further. Then up here, so this right here is Sunstone, which has been installed on all the Abundance platforms for a distinct purpose. So the aspect of the receptive green ray high exaggeration would be more the yin intake of this frequency, while the Sunstone is very much the orange ray sacrum solar plexus stimulant that is the zest of life frequency that can be considered to be the yang output of the abundance ratio. So those who have been employed with every abundance ratio for this exact purpose to, of course, feel good, feel excited, feel great is also very conducive to feeling good about life, having gratitude, which keeps the momentum of stabilized abundance in perpetual momentum. So that's a very nice sun, fun energy that's very vibrant, very joyful to the energy body. And one of my favorite stones as well. Actually, I have a lot. That's hard to say because obviously from this 21-minute dissertation, I'm pretty obsessed and I'm quite the crystalline enthusiast, to say the least. And so, anyhow, me and my silly digressions. I beg anyone's pardon watching this. Okay, so this section right here will be where the green leather will be installed for a distinct purpose. Far more than just aesthetic. That actually might be the last of my priorities for aesthetic purposes, but it is indeed a nice little capstone. So to kind of give a vague idea that with one hand I'm trying to make it look somewhat acceptable just for dissertation's sake, I guess that will do. Okay, so the lovely forest green leather actually has a distinct purpose of being a color therapy resonance to encourage the further green ray heart chakra stimulation of the abundance spectrum. B, it's also an insulation to make sure that all the excess energy from under the hood seen right here also condenses the energy through this blade band and this blade band to further optimize the efficiency of the energy circuit running through the entire platform in a vaguely resembling figure 8 contained frequency broadcast. And also C, it works to protect these subtle stones seen right here. And D, it of course, I guess last but certainly not least, it also, once it's properly fitted to it, it makes a very, very nice aesthetic completion, but indeed is far more function than form, just as a quick little digression. And yeah, that's the idea of the green leather. And what they're protecting is a very special component that's virtually, actually I take that back. It is found on all the abundance platforms. Oh, sorry. Having a fifth attack, obviously. It's a lot of talking. So, this right here plays a very critical role for the successful abundance platform thus far, as moss green agate at a very large prominent size right here for a distinct tremendous purpose. So agates and jaspers, for that matter, in the mineral kingdom are the most stable vibrations in the mineral kingdom, which means green moss green agate, water elemental stabilization of the fourth chakra is unparalleled to stabilize that terrestrial physical transference, which makes for a very stable, consistent, calming frequency transference of this entire platform. And so why that's also tremendously important to have that stabilization of the heart's receptivity is to, of course, have the extreme exaggeration of this green ray high heart, physical heart overture. You can have a dramatic exaggeration of this frequency, but if it's not consistent and stable, that can, of course, cause erratic wavelengths, so to speak. That would not be conducive for maintaining the stable abundant state. So this guy plays a very important role to be a stabilization agent to this entire frequency pitch output, which indeed is designed to keep the recipient in the abundant stable abundance ratio to have that receptivity just be a stable staple, gotta be a good way to put it, of the abundance ratio forevermore, as it lives happily ever after the recipient. That is the big idea. So that will be a very critical role that's found in all the abundance platforms that so far they've been working pretty well, which I will omit to keep things consolidated in this video. Oh, pardon me. Got a frog in my throat. So right here is a very special variety of Agni Manatite Black Tektite. So Black Tektite is a very fantastic ground up frequency stimulant of the entire chakra column, luckily. And so since it's a black gray stone, it has a tremendous vibrational threshold increase, thank goodness, from the ground up, to be a very powerful foundational fortification scaffolding of the entire energy body to raise the vibrations, most importantly from the ground up. It is the big advantage of any kind of black tektite utilization in spirituals, which of course increases the entire vibration, which is very complementary to the entire initiative of keeping one's vibration high in the abundance spectrum. So that will be where the hood will be installed, and at the very apex, to honor the further blue-ray concentration and with its own place of honor, would be the lovely, legendary blue turquoise, seen right here at the very apex of the core. So blue turquoise, just like lapis, is a favorite of millions for thousands of years for a very good reason. It is a very quintessential fifth chakra stimulant that has been praised for literally across the world, which I'm going to omit. And it plays for a very powerful earth, fire, water, and wind wholeness focus of the fifth chakra. So we have the four terrestrial elements in a stabilization and focus of the fifth chakra that very much is very conducive to being a stone of wholeness, and a very powerful pranic generator for that matter as well. So it's a very vibrant, dynamic frequency to be utilized, and of course it's at the very top so that it's always going to be exposed on the epicenter while being worn by the recipient, who, of course, does a lot of talking, hence the heavy blue ray concentration to fortify that endeavor. Alrighty, so that would be the entirety of the crystalline operational order just about, besides the ones I omit for last. So before I continue further on these guys down here that I omitted as a capstone, this core of wood right here actually is from Sedona, Arizona, from my favorite vortice between Bell Rock and Courthouse Mesa, from my best tree friend out there that is a juniper. So between these two vortice points, there's one fabulous tree. I've made good friends out there in the Ruby City, and this would be the wood from that fabulous tree in Sedona, Arizona, which has its own merit of being a very powerful spiritual dharmic accelerant, because this guy, the tree I'm speaking of, lived its life in the Ruby City, which is Sedona, with a very high iron matrix to literally absorb the iron energy of the entire scope and scale of what the prehistoric First Nation tribes called the hospital, the entire region. And I mean my digressions, pardon me. And so the purpose of that, why it's important too, is that the core of the wood is also a tremendous dharmic accelerant in its own right, based on its very high frequency grounding capacity as the foundation of this entire closed-loop reactive circuit. Anyhow, enough digressions. Now it's time for the capstone. Man. Yeah, this guy's got me pretty excited, so I'm getting quite animated, and I'm having quite the fifth chakra attack as I'm discussing this entire concept, because it's rather exciting. Pardon my digression, thrice more. Okay, so the thing I do say for last intentionally, after this about 28 minutes of this rant thus far, is the notarization of the selenites seen right here. So this white selenite can be considered a frequency master healer of the crystalline kingdom by itself, as a tremendous 6th, 7th, all the non-physical chakras back to one's godhead, thereby promoting conscious self-awareness in tandem with the higher self, which is its own reward for a spiritual aspirant to be in touch with their higher guidance, which is the goal of my life's work, essentially, to empower those I have the privilege of serving. So that by itself is a fantastic loop. And then, of course, by having that high-frequency, higher self, conscious self gateway key unlocked, works as a very powerful high-frequency induction to bring that divine energy through the entire auric field from top to bottom to basically burn off stagnant points of lower vibrational frequencies that can be stored in the auric field. So that by itself is quite tremendous. But where it always shines in any given spirit tool I'm always excited to talk about as a capstone is the concept of taking this entire crystalline ignition order mentioned thus far in 29 minutes to run through the circuitry and purify the entire platform. So all these crystals are being purified through a perpetual loop sequence. Then it also works to amplify or intensify the entire yield. And last but not least, perhaps most importantly, it also brings harmonization and equilibrium to the entire frequency pitch to generate a cohesive whole of this vibratory output wavelength, which means that you have this entire crystalline structure being self-purified consistently, then it's being amplified or intensified, and once again, most importantly, being harmonized and brought to equilibrium to be very orderly with all these frequencies as a cohesive whole of this crystalline entity before me. That is my favorite part about that, so that of course makes for the grounds for any tremendous triumphant spirit tool. Then, last but not least, is discussing the kyanites. There is black and blue kyanite seen right here against the selenite, which plays its own very critical role. Black kyanite, actually, before I continue further, kyanites, for that matter, are the most rapid energy transfers in the Mineral Kingdom, hence I employ them for very specific purposes to actually indeed encourage making the magic real by rapid transfers of energy. So black kyanite is a very fantastic grounder of all excess energy, very quickly through the root, the earth stars, and the earth at a very constant rate, much like the transmutation ratio, but black kyanite's energy bridging capacity is very, very reactive and very much a rapid grounder as quick as needed for the highest good of the recipient's highest self configuration. It gets very meta when I discuss this part for last. That's why I oftentimes save for last as a capstone. And so the black kyanite also serves as a tremendous surge protector to take all this excess frequency and tremendously encourage the grounding contact patch at a very rapid rate through the base, into the earth stars, into the earth, for rapid two-way dialysis reprocessing to further bring tangibility to the vibratory output at a consistent rate. That also brings comfort to the recipient too, to ensure the yield frequency contact patch is very well insulated and arced. Then, right here, would be the blue kyanite, which is a fantastic transference energy of the third eye spectrum, which is very useful for diplomatic communication, actually, which is obviously the big vocation of this platform's subtle alterations from the other abundance platforms, is to encourage the recipient's vocation with crystals to aid intentionally. So, the blue kyanite makes for very rapid transfers for communication purposes as well, to basically build bridges of light between two disparate aspects or two different frequency patterns, like say two different people, as a relevant non-Christianese example. As a joke, I call my rants Christianese, which sometimes sound like a different language. It's a joke for my colleagues and my friends. And so the aspect right there too is that having the rapid transferability energy of being able to rapidly bridge the energies through the entire auric field, into personal field, outer field, also works as another etheric Teflon layer to encourage the rapid transfer so quickly of these two energy points that negative stagnant energy has a very difficult time sticking and compromising the physical self in this subroutine, essentially, to keep it kind of simple. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop myself there, but the idea is made. Okay, so in summary, this platform has been developed to be the 20th rendition of the abundance platform of very high yield, abundant frequencies with many other components to support the absolute victory of the abundance ratio, essentially. And of course, can be worn on the person as designed to be a talisman, which is relatively clandestine. It's a little bigger at the recipient's behest, so to speak. But the big idea too, of course, this is a personal energy buffer that was, of course, designed to be consciousness-assisted technology that would be in resonance with one's, whoever wields this, higher self, in tandem with their physical conscious self to make the heaven-to-earth portal, essentially. In that capacity, with the abundant spectrum of one's true birthright manifest, has been the big goal of this big crusade. Like I mentioned, has been pretty prolific, and this would be the 20th rendition in about 3 months or so, which is a pretty big concentration for how I work with many different frequency platforms. But this has been a very much a organically in demand natural frequency that's been pushed into existence pretty heavily, pretty consistently, despite other projects being mixed in. So it's actually pretty fun to make the 20th rendition after about 3 weeks of not making an abundance platform. This will be the first one about 3 weeks since all the dust has settled. That has been quite tremendous. So there we have it. So the big idea too, it's a very dynamic full light body stimulant, obviously, with the heavy concentration of the abundance ratio to be very dynamic in service to the recipient as they serve creation and have a wonderful time. That's a big goal too. And I guess I'll stop my rants now and wish everybody a very abundant day, and may the force be with us all.